everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dorking RFC podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lee Nightingale, and as ever, I'm delighted to be joined by Armand. How you doing, my friend?
Very good, thanks, Lee, and you?
Oh, we'll get into that, but we will get into that. I have a good update on COVID for you, literally. Also today, we're delighted to be joined by Melanie Thorne and Daniel Mackenzie. Guys, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi.
A few technical issues this morning with Daniel. So for those of you that are watching this week's episode, you'll notice that you don't see Daniel. He's on his phone in a gym somewhere or outside somewhere. So apologies if you hear tube trains and all the rest of it, but there we go.
Thanks.
So guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good. I'm really excited to get your views and everything. But first of all, I want to do a COVID update. Literally, I've had COVID.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. I go a whole year of being really careful and washing hands and mask and everything. And then 2 weeks ago, I get a phone call from my sister saying my dad's fallen over and we've had the paramedics out and everything. And they've checked him out and said, oh, you're okay. You know, you don't have COVID, you know, even though he's feeling quite poorly. But they did all his vital signs, checked him all out. No point going to get tested. You're okay. So I got up the following day, you know, dutiful son, help him out in his flat, start off wearing a mask. I'm thinking, what am I doing? They've said he hasn't got COVID. I'm going to be okay. And then come back on the Wednesday, and then the following Monday, I'm like, oh, I felt a bit rough.
Oh, no.
And then by Wednesday, I'm like, ugh, I'm feeling really rough. Go get tested. Lo and behold, COVID.
Oh,
My
jeez.
brother-in-law was also helping me, and he also caught it. Passes it on to my sister, who's 7 months pregnant,
Oh,
and of course
Shame,
I pass it
man.
on to my wife and 18-month daughter. So we've for the last 2 weeks been trying to handle having COVID and looking after a toddler.
Shame,
yeah,
man.
you've all been through it.
Have they said anything about you guys on the vaccine? Have you guys been put on the list for the vaccine? Have you been checked yet?
Nope.
I've had the vaccine.
I have. I've also had the first one.
Wow.
Well, that's great.
Well, the lady that I used to stay with, she works at the Twickenham branch. She's one of the heads of this
Right.
testing center and the vaccine center. And because of the job that I do, working with other people, and because she's in front with a lot of testing people, they were like, you guys are at risk and all this here, so we don't want to try and spread it and make it even worse. So I had to get it, and then I had to wait for a week. So I couldn't see any clients outside, so everything was more done on Zoom. So eventually they were like, you can continue, you can go outside. But it's like every second week I had to get tested. It was kind of horrible, getting that thing stuck up your nose and down your throat. Not a great feeling.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, there's no indication of when we'll get the vaccine. You know, I've no underlying health conditions, so I assume I'll be on the list with every other adult under the age of 50, you know, to be getting it sometime before the end of July, really. But there we go. So that's my COVID update. Armand, have you got one and follow that one?
No, gosh, yeah. Well, it's good to see you. You're sounding a lot better than when I spoke to you last time, so it was always good. Yeah, no real COVID update apart from what everyone else knows, really, with regards to we'll be able to get back to some sort of rugby from the 29th of March onwards. So we're just awaiting from the RFU to tell us at what stage that would be. Obviously, if we go back to stage B where we were, it will be sort of small groups of 6 and quite tailored sessions, how we conduct it and deliver it. And obviously, we're hopeful that the sessions will be a bit further down the line of that. Even Boris said he wants contact rugby at some stage in end of April, sort of May time. But we got to get a move on from the conditioning side of it, because we can't just jump straight into contact. Otherwise, Mel will be screaming at myself and saying, "What are you doing with this player?"
I'll be very busy.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So no, I think overall the youth club's quite excited to get back on Sundays. I know that for a fact. So the first Sunday they can get back is 4th of April, which is Easter Sunday, unfortunately. So we're probably looking at a return around the 11th of April for the youth game, and the seniors and YDP will start just before that. So quite exciting for the club at the moment.
Wonderful. Mel, yeah, speaking of that, then, so what do you do to get prepared then for the restart? What kind of things are you going to be up to?
Well, essentially, obviously the players haven't been playing proper rugby for some time, so we need to make sure everything is in place for when that starts. So from a COVID point of view, it's essentially making sure that all our staff have PPE. So that includes a face mask, apron and gloves, and then extra PPE if we need to do an aerosol generating procedure. So we need to have that all ready and set up for if that incident takes place. We've also had to set up like cleaning schedules and things like that. So obviously no one's been at the club recently, so we need to get that all kickstarted and going. In terms of the players, it's in terms of getting them ready, it's making sure we have all our baseline scats done. So a scat, for anyone who doesn't know who's listening, is a baseline head injury assessment. So it's looking at people's balance, their short-term memory, their coordination, and it's a benchmark that we can use. So if a player has a head injury, whether it's in training or later on in a game when we get back to that stage, we can use that to compare really. And then also making sure that all health like medical assessments and things like that are all up to date. So we have everyone's past medical history is all up to date really. And then alongside that as well is making sure any niggles and people, you know, ankle injuries or anything people may have sustained recently, that we've got up to date rehab programs for them too.
Yeah, good stuff. Because obviously the guys, I'm sure, will have been keeping up a certain level of fitness, but there's been no strenuous, I would say, you know, physical contact where the risk of injury and strains are significantly increased. So as Armand said, you've probably got to ease them back into that because otherwise you're going to get tears quite easily, right?
Yeah, it's a completely different type of fitness. They can keep their fitness up by running and in the gym and things like that, but it's not sports specific enough to rugby. You know, they need to be you know, on the field doing specific rugby drills, you know, doing when they can allow to start doing some type of contact. It's getting used to that, getting their, you know, their tendons, building their load up through their tendons, through their joints and things in a slow, gradual progress, which where Dan really comes into play really to make sure that's done in a slow and gradual way to keep us not being too busy.
Yeah, bringing in Dan then. Dan, you can be a busy boy over the coming weeks. So does this mean sort of rethinking, rewriting what would be their strength and conditioning plan? Because obviously, are you treating this as if like coming back from the off season and going back into that way, or do you have to approach it differently?
We have to approach it differently. The reason is exactly like what Mal says. I'm going to touch again as to what she had said is, again, gyms have been closed. A lot of guys don't have equipment. Some guys do have equipment. So we have been building the basis. So what is called the foundation block. And this is where I've actually enjoyed working with Mel. And it's one of the things that has been a powerful source, especially at Dorking, which I've enjoyed, is the communication between medic staff, between what's happening with the coaches and how to exactly watch their load. When she talks about load, we're looking at how much we've got to emphasize and how much the body goes through each thing. And like Armand says, we've got a few weeks. We're looking at a split. We've got like 2 weeks before we get into any sort of contact. Bearing in mind, we have had no ways of actually strengthening the body because all gyms have been closed. But we have been doing Zoom sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we've been working on the fundamentals of bases. So we're looking at growing our roots. Think of every player as a seed. If we fertilize them well, and this is where it comes into each player looking after their muscles, their tendons, everything. We work on the small fundamental movement patterns. We get that they're right. What will happen is that by the time we get thrown into the deep end, as anything will come, we're a bit more prepared. And it doesn't really put a lot of pressure onto our medic staff like Mel and them. So I'm always corresponding with them and checking with them. And it's a fast track kind of way. But yes, you're right. We are going to think of it in a different way. We are going to attend it in a different way. And I have been in touch with Armand, and we've got quite a few plans ready for them, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I guess on that one, I suppose, we've got to periodize our season and have a phased approach to it, but it all depends on where we are allowed to get back to and where's the RFU expecting us to be. If they're going to say we're going to have some cluster matches in May, for argument's sake, then we can work our way back from that and plan accordingly. So one of the smaller cycles, as Dan said, is just to build that foundation with the players before we start looking at slowly improving. But your body takes time to adjust. As soon as we're back on the pitch, you're going to have lower backs, hamstrings, calves. The guys are going to come crying. So it's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? It's almost like a preseason in a way, but we're slightly different, and in the fact that we've had nothing for a year, so we've got to be extra careful.
Yeah.
So what would you typically do then? So how to normalize it for me that's relatively new in the off season? What would the guys typically be doing in order to maintain that base, if you like?
So periodization, we'll look at strength training. Obviously, as it's been proven, there's a research that came out not so long ago, and it was done by the England Rugby Union, where they've actually proven that your body goes through 75% of damage during a season. That's how much your muscle tears in a season, 75%. So we look at, like I'll chat to Mel, we look at every training session, every workload is calculated. So we'll go through our training programs. I'll show them what we're going to do for training programs so that it's not a repetitive kind of exercise. So once the season's done, first things first, we normally give them a deload week, which means we tell them to switch off completely to try and let their bodies recover, normally for about 2 weeks at most. Once the 2 weeks is done, then we'll start the pre-season gym sessions, which will be your strength sessions. So periodization, you've got 6 weeks at least. We try and give them a 6-week block of a gym session. It is broken down to forwards are forwards, backs are backs, and they've got their programs, but not forgetting the mobility work that they've got in it as well. So we focus on what was our biggest key area. So this is all stats of what we had last year. What was our biggest injuries? So we look at hamstrings, we look at ankles, we look at anything that whatever the list could be. And we tailor these sessions to these guys and be like, knowing that we've got 8 weeks or 12 weeks before we start getting into preseason on the field. So we give them the first 2 weeks off. Then the next 6 weeks is just in the gym, prehab and strength work, where they're really focusing on building the muscle groups, getting them stronger. Some of the guys might get slightly heavier. Yes, that is bound to happen, which is what we want, because before the season starts, with all the running, which is a gradual start, a slow start, and then slowly picking it up from a baseline. And I will explain to Armand. So I have, once we finished off the preseason stuff of gym work, when we get to Dorking, and we know that when the season's going to start, we have a chat. We'll go through the basis of what our sessions are going to be, how much running we're going to do, of which I'll also correspond with the medic team, because overloading the system just means that they're just going to tear muscles again, and they're going to be back to square one. And Mel will definitely not be happy with having reoccurring injuries.
Yeah,
that is one of the things that we've been quite happy with this year, is not having reoccurring injuries.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely been helpful.
Yeah, because I guess these young and enthusiastic players that we've got these days, they're all about gym, and sort of getting themselves fit and healthy. And there's a risk of it without the right guidance and coaching on what to train and when. The muscles aren't being given the chance to recover and repair and grow and develop. Right? They're perhaps training the same muscle too close together, and repeat tearing and.
Yeah, it's got to be a really slow, gradual progress really. So your tendons, your muscles are slowly getting used to that load. Otherwise, you're at massive risk of muscle tears, tendinopathies, other niggles and things like that. So it's really, really important.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say exactly that. We got to ensure it's a stage approach. And one of the three things we normally look at is what's the load we lift in sessions, what's the distance we cover in sessions, and also how long the ball is in play, which is more from the rugby side of it. Now, Dan is monitoring that quite closely based on the amount of gym work the guys do away from the club. So if Dan knows the guys are doing a heavy week in the gym and lifting some heavy weight, there's no point us coming, if they've done a heavy leg session in a 2-week block, to just try and fleece them and do 3K worth of sprints. I mean, they'll be straight into melt. So I guess, you know, it's a staged approach and building that up slowly. Ball in play, especially, fatigue sets in and the guys get really tired, and that's when injuries occurs in contact. So again, you do maybe a minute ball in play, and then you progress to 90 seconds, 2 minutes ball in play. That's how you slowly get back to playing. So luckily, I guess it's alignment, isn't it? And Mel and Dan is very good at having a chat and where the players are at and what we're allowed to do at which stage, and we slowly move that up. So there is some thought behind it. We don't just turn up and run up a hill and back down, I suppose.
But speaking of the data, would I be right in saying, and I don't know if this is the same in football, but in rugby, on the back of their shirts, is that what we see? There's some sort of tag or token in there that's tracking their distance and.
Yeah, they're tracking distance covered, areas of the pitch they cover. So certain players sort of do more than others, but also they are tracking the impact as well. So that's sort of helping concussion, supporting concussion checks as well. So it tracks the velocity of impact in tackles and scrums and collisions. So that's the more advanced bits of kit which we don't have access to. It's too expensive.
Right. Speaking of expensive kit, Mel, the new facilities that we've got coming, how excited are you about that? What plans have you got?
Really, really, really excited. So at the moment, we've got one medical room with 2 plinths in. So often we'll have pre-COVID, it would be 2 medical staff in there at the same time treating players. So in terms of the medical rooms, we're now going to have 2, which is amazing. So it means that we can potentially have one room where female rugby players are being treated, another room where maybe it's just male players being treated. And in terms of, if a player's coming to you and potentially we're seeing them for a long period of time for their rehab, that can be quite tough on their mental health, if they're not been playing rugby and things like that. So just having an extra room where we can go have those difficult conversations with players as well is really important. And also in terms of the gym, we're all really, really excited about that. It means we can actually make sure players are doing rehab correctly, that they're actually doing it. So we can pop in and make sure they're doing it when they say that they are, but we never really know. So really, really excited.
Same question to you, Dan.
I'm beyond stoked. To be quite honest, I think the best way we can put it to you is it's going to be nice to actually have a setup where players from any age will feel like they're not stepping into just a gym. It's going to be a full functional quality setup, because now you'll get an understanding what it's like to be professional, where you can walk in, everything is going to be recorded. It's not going to take long for anyone to see anything. Files are going to be set up. We've got our files. I've set up a good filing system, so if medics need to see what we've done, it's easy for them to just click on something and it's right there to see their workload. If you're coming in for injuries, you'll have your separate sheet for it. And the nice thing is it's not going to be just for the seniors. We're actually going to be broadening it from the juniors all the way up. So it's kind of nice to start teaching them from a young level how to do certain things correctly, how to monitor things correctly. A lot of the time, like you said, a lot of guys go into the gym and they think the heavier the squat is, the better I'm going to run. But all you're doing is you're compressing it. You teach them what is a compound movement. You teach them how to work your loads. All those kind of bases is what we're going to be looking at. And it's going to be so nice to just treat them like a professional player. If you treat it as a professional place, they're going to be professionals. They could be the next player playing for any country or the next superstar coming through, but it's just from the grassroots teaching them how to look after their systems and how to work it.
Yeah, ensuring longevity. I mean, hopefully everyone can have a long career like Armand. Yeah, because I'm sure there's nothing more frustrating than sort of, you're in the height of your career and all of a sudden something goes snap or pop and that's it, you're done, and knee replacements and all the rest of it. So, thankfully we've got the technology, the data, the know-how, the experience, the training plans and everything that, we're far more advanced than we've ever been now. to ensure that we give players the best possible chance of having a much longer career, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess what the facility is going to add, is that mental and physical well-being for most of our members, so they understand how to look after their bodies, and they look at preventative measures in the event of them going to do something that's out of the ordinary. They're going to do their first 10K or 5K or 21K, who knows what they got planned. And I think that it's quite important to sort of realize that side of the club as well as the sort of player side of it. And I think as a club, we've always been, we call it obviously a one club and a one for all type club. And I think with these bits we're going to put in place, we'll definitely give those opportunities for those. And it gives us an opportunity to further develop and educate the younger players, as Dan rightfully said. But we are going to formalize that by putting a Colts program in place. And we want to look at things like getting them to do head case courses, safeguarding courses, tackle safety courses. If you look at the press at the moment with regards to concussion and all these ex-professional players trying to sue the RFU for all the times they had to put their head in a ruck. I mean, we got to teach people how to take care of their bodies and how to tackle properly. Inevitably, they're all going to tackle wrong anyway when they get on the pitch and trying to stop a try. But we got to wash our hands and say we've done all we can, and we've gone above and beyond what's expected of us as a club to try and support our club.
I think they should be more focused on suing for ending up with cabbage ears. I mean,
yeah. Can people looking at it also get compensation?
Yeah, I mean, being relatively new to rugby and seeing it on TV, and you're looking at people's ears that just look a complete mess. I mean, they've had them reconstructed, and you just think, why would you not wear a head guard ever? Why would you have not worn one right from the very beginning? I guess it was all bravado and, oh my God, what are you doing, you big girl's blouse? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, if that's politically correct anymore, but I'm going to say it. But you just don't see it, and you still see very, very few players with head guards on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been proven, hasn't it? I mean, it doesn't really prevent concussion as such. It helps with the friction of trousers, putting your head in a scrum, those type of bits or lacerations, that helps. But with regards to the impact itself, it doesn't really. That's where the mouth guard comes in. So yeah, but with regards to the ears, you're absolutely right. But the funny thing is, you have to get one tackle wrong, and then your ears there for life. You get a bang against the ear, and that gets torn, and it starts bleeding, and that's it. So it doesn't really mean that they're not good at tackling or anything. It just means that at one time out of all the minutes of playing, they did something, or someone else did something that was unexpected, and it happens so quickly. Yeah, but, it's not a pretty sight. You're right, Lee.
No. Yeah. Speaking of internationals, we'll touch across it very briefly, but I watched England, Italy 2 weeks ago, almost, and I'm watching and I'm standing there with my Guinness and I'm ready, and then the first 5 minutes, and then Italy score, and you're like, wait a minute, they're not supposed to do that. That's not what all the build-up was all about. And so I'm now thinking, well, is it down to selection? That everyone gave Eddie a load of stick about him saying it's not about selection and all this kind of rubbish. So what are your thoughts, Armand?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I mean, they delivered the goods at the end, didn't they? They did turn up eventually and beat Italy, and then against Scotland, they did play better rugby, but Scotland is the informed team. I mean, there's so many factors at the moment. If you listen to the RFU podcast at the moment that they're doing, you look at how these players are living at the moment. They're pretty much quarantining themselves in a hotel room, playing online gaming with each other to interact, and they get like 45 minutes in a catering hall, and that's it, being tested every 24 hours. It must be horrific for players. I mean, being in camp, that's the exciting part, it's getting to know your teammates and having a chat, having a laugh, because they're all from different Premiership clubs. So I can see how they are not looking like they should be looking to a supporter of England. But I guess, we're all in testing times at the moment. It's a shame, I suppose, from that point of view. But fair play to Italy for playing well, and Scotland for pulling up the goods. I don't know whether Scotland's quarantining up there. We don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, they still got a chance against Wales coming up.
Dan,
Yeah.
how about you? What do you think is going on?
It is difficult, like Owen said. I mean, from camps, it's if the gelling wise, spending time with your teammates and all that there, and I mean, it also makes a difference. I mean, I think not getting used to playing in an empty stadium, for certain guys or certain players, some of them making their debuts. I think England's preparing themselves. They've got 4 years before a World Cup, well, 2. So you've got to look at his structure-wise. And I mean, a lot of people, if you're supporting any country, you don't realize the amount of admin and the amount of players and how you've got to work each one. It's a building block. You've got to try and experiment. Rather try and experiment now, fall and fumble, because at a World Cup you've only got one hurdle. If you fall at that hurdle, that's it. You go home and then you get criticized on that as well. So I mean, it is quite tricky for them though.
But the funny thing is, all the teams that always played in front of an empty stadium are doing quite well before COVID, so they never had much supporters. They all used to playing.
Do you, I don't know if this is a controversial question or not. Do you think it's time for Eddie to go, or do you think he has got such a great track record that there's, with the peaks and troughs in any sport, I'm not just going to say with rugby, a team just doesn't continuously do well. There's always some sort of other factors, and there's peaks and troughs. Do you think he's going to get given the benefit of the doubt and going to be sticking around for a while longer?
Me personally, yeah, he doesn't need to go. He needs to stay. He's a great rugby brain. It's just unfortunate environment at the moment for him, and he's trying to manage that. I was fortunate enough to be in a coaching course that him and Jake White conducted in Stellenbosch about 10 years ago, and the man's brain is just rugby brain. It's just phenomenal. He's picked up so much experience over the years, and he's a little terrier really. So yeah, I think there's just peaks and troughs, as you said. You just got to roll with it, and you'll come good in a year's time again. Once we get back to more normality.
Yeah. Mel, have you been watching the Six Nations? What's your thoughts?
I've been watching snippets of it. I agree what the other two have said. I think just playing with an empty stadium, they're not training together in their training camps. All these contributing factors, I think, are the reason why we played the way we played we did.
Yeah, because if you're not doing the training several times a week, that sharpness, that awareness, that togetherness, right, it slowly drifts apart. I guess it's in golfing terms, people don't tend to lose their main full swing. That comes back very quickly, but their short game, that touch, that feel, that finesse is generally what goes the longer time you're away from the game. So I'm sure that's the same in rugby as well. Just that sort of that mental sharpness and alertness as to what's going on.
That's true.
No, 100%, and that's some of the challenges all the clubs will be facing as we come out of where we're at now. Is going to be that consistency of constantly touching the ball. I don't think any club player has not touched the ball for this long. I mean, I'm talking probably from my own background, but most players have been playing their whole lives, and they're there season in, season out, always touching a rugby ball with their mates, and suddenly it's going to be a different environment. So inevitably we're going to see, hopefully, not too many mistakes, but we will see some mistakes happening. Some great tries.
Mel, just coming back to the club. Firstly, how many years have you been with Dorking?
This is my 5th year. So I started, it must have been 2016. My first season was with the seconds, and then I went up to the first team, assisting Catherine Fowler, who used to be the first team physio, well, the main first team physio, and then I took over her position, and then I've been the lead physio for 2 seasons. Well, last season, and then if you can call this a season.
No, yeah. So, and in terms of the development of the club, what do you feel has been the greatest development from your perspective? How have you seen things change?
I think a big thing for me is the communication between medical team and strength and conditioning. I think when I first started, it was quite separate, and as the years have gone on, we've basically really worked on that communication, that the relationship between our two teams, you know, so at the beginning and end of every session, we have a discussion with Dan. I have a discussion with Ari at the end of every session, talking about players' rehab, when I think their return to play could be. And I think that communication has been the biggest thing kind of over the last few years that we've been working on.
Before, it was more like a case of the strength and condition going, here you go, here, we broke one, you fix it, and that was it. It was not really an understanding of, okay, what was happening at the time when the tear or the break
and
was,
as physios, we didn't really know what they were doing out on the pitch. You know, we could go out and watch in the dark and things if we wanted, but as physios, we didn't really have that understanding of what they were putting their bodies through in a training session and things as well. So I think as physios, when we had that greater understanding of what they were doing, we were able to treat them better, rehab them better, and get them back out on the pitch a lot quicker as well.
Good stuff. Same question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Armand?
No, just before Dan, I just wanted to add something to Mel there. I think, Mel, you're probably not talking about it too much, but you've brought a hell of a lot of professionalism to what they do from a medical room perspective. I mean, people won't know this, but she grabs people before matches into the room, sort of staff members, and she'll close the door and she'll teach everyone how to use the spinal board properly. And a month later, she's like, all right, who's our support staff today? X, Y, Z. And you guys come in, close the door. And they will literally have someone on the floor pretending that they need to go onto a spinal board. And that's what Mel doing, keeping everyone fresh the whole time. And I think that's an amazing aspect to have, is that professional approach, because we never know when it's going to happen. And I guess as someone who wants to help, you don't know what to do really. So having these little monthly catch-ups on it is fantastic. And it's something the wider club can see.
It's really important, because in that scenario, everyone needs to know what their role is. And the lead physio, whoever that could be, needs to take charge and knows the step-by-step process, you know, off the back of their head, really. So it's really important that we practice all those scenarios. Within the medical team also, you know, as a physio, we may do our pitch side training maybe once every 2 years or so. If you're not using those skills regularly, you forget them, as anyone would. So within the medical team also, we may just practice putting a neck collar onto someone. We may just, you know, talking through certain scenarios, how to you know, assist in someone's breathing if we needed to, and things like that. So it's an ongoing process, really. Yeah,
I mean, clearly we all pray that these things don't happen or happen so far apart. But the idea is that literally a switch flips when something does happen, and everyone goes, we know what we're doing, boom, there we go. You know, if I think back to the Formula One crash that happened just a few months ago, where the guy went straight through the barrier, you know, nose cone of the and the support team in the Mercedes behind literally jumped out and went immediately straight into it, grabbed him out, putting the fire out. They knew what they were doing because they'd rehearsed. You know, they hadn't had to do it in real for years almost now. It's been years since there's been a major incident like that. So we're not just talking weeks or months go by without any real incident happening. This is years, and they've trained so that when that incident happened, it was a natural reaction, straight onto it. So congratulations to you, Mal, for keeping everyone sharp and on their toes, because it really does make a difference. You know, speed and precision in these kind of things is paramount. You know, getting medical attention to those people that need it quickly and then safely in the right way can save lives. I mean, let's not do that, right?
It can definitely. And even if someone was to have a brain injury, the quicker you can get them to hospital, the better that outcome is. You know, in terms of spinal cord injury, the better you can stabilize that spinal cord injury, the quicker someone's recovering, better their outcomes, really. So it's really important.
Good stuff. Armand, any closing words from you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really. I'm just very excited. I mean, obviously having the A team on today from a medical and rehab point of view, I mean, they are the driving force behind what we are achieving as a club and what we're looking to achieve going forward. And it's great to have two such professional individuals running that side of it. So really excited with the times coming up on us, as a club. We're obviously opening up and playing rugby, but the other side of it, the club's been talking about a gym for years, and I know the balcony that's up at the club, that's there for a different purpose, but that's been talking about for 30 years. So finally, all of these things are happening at the club, and I think it's very exciting times for the club, and hopefully everyone turns up, enjoys it as much as we do.
Good. And I do just want to pay tribute to Spire Group, who are sponsors, right? And the work that they do for the team. Mel, do you want to just talk about that?
So it's actually hospital. I work at Spire St Anthony's in Cheam. So we have a partnership as a rugby club with Spire, the private hospital group. So if, for example, we are suspecting that a player may need an MRI scan or an ultrasound scan, or even just further, we want another opinion, so we can refer them to the sports injury clinic at Spire St Anthony's Hospital, where they'll be seen by a specialist physiotherapist or even a consultant for further imaging and maybe surgery and things if that's indicated. So I think since we've had that extra bit of support from Spire, it's been really, really, really helpful.
Well, it's been amazing, by the way. It's just having one of your own medical team members who works there as well, and in partnership with them. Any player, they're going to go and get the right diagnosis, and then they're going to work correctly towards being fully fit again. And I mean, the injuries we've had and some surgeries we've had, and seeing players back on the pitch has just been great. So it's a very great partnership to have from our perspective. Yeah,
well, thanks to Mel and the Spire Group for providing that level of sponsorship and support. Final word over to Dan. You're doing your masters. What are you studying?
Masters in strength and conditioning. It's more like your biomechanical science. Trying to be a brain box like Mel, so I can also be clever. I mean, it's the benefits of having it is not only just like a refresher, it just reminds you of stuff that can be used and benefit other players. If Armand would tell you the stuff that we know now, we wish we knew when we were playing, So the knowledge is key. Send it down as soon and as quick as you can to the youth. That's my main goal. That's what I'm really excited about. And, teach them what's important and how important medics are. When a medic says to you, rest, recover, why do we need to listen to that? If we need to go for this, it doesn't mean that a torn hamstring is the end of your career. It's just a matter of an imbalance. You teach them, okay, why am I having an imbalance? Let them understand how their body works and functions. So going back to doing it is just one of the key roles for me personally, because it's going to challenge me to get out of that comfort zone, to always stay on top of it, because it is important to be on top of your game. If I'm professional, I treat everyone else professionally, you're going to get a professional setup. You're going to get a great opinion. You're going to get everything done in such a way that you will always turn around and be thankful for the people that have helped you get wherever you are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dan, for everything you're doing for the club, and same to you, Mel. We greatly appreciate everything you do, and I'm sure all the players, whether they've been treated by you or not, they're appreciative to know that those skills and services are there on hand when they need it, and I'm sure Armand will echo those thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. We're moving in a direction as a club where this is paramount to everyone's well-being at the moment, and you guys are doing a great job. So really appreciating the club will echo those thoughts as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys, and thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode of the Dorking RFC podcast. Stay safe, everyone. Mel, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We've really,
thank you, guys. Thank you
for having us.
Thank you.
All right, guys, stay safe now. Thank you.
Thank you.